Good day and welcome to Because Growth Matters. I'm your host, Daniel Robus, and today you are stuck with me. It's a solo episode as we wrap up season 2. Can you believe it? To all of you who have listened to season 1 and season 2 now, thank you. I really appreciate your attention and giving us the time. I hope you've picked up some tips and tricks and you have implemented them in your place of work. If not, I'll strive to do that even better in season 3. But now what do we want to do? We want to have a pause and reflection on what we've done. And I've done this deliberately because that's part of what we teach at the SMDP. If we don't pause and reflect, we just flounder on forwards and we run on the treadmill and don't necessarily get anywhere. So it was super fun for me, and Emma and I had a look at the season, and we had a look at the people that we spoke with, and we were looking for themes that came through, themes that emerged that seemed to bubble to the surface, even though we spoke to a diverse range of people where on the surface it seemed unconnected. You know, we spoke to people who are in elite sport, we spoke to sales leaders, we spoke to hiring specialists, we spoke to a cultural guru, we spoke to a person that was predicting the future of work. We spoke to many people around different topics, even someone that's changing the world one child at a time. And you would think that they are unrelated, but what came through to me was this golden thread running through organizations, this topic that keeps coming up again and again and again. It's the power of coaching and the power of development within organizations. But the uncomfortable truth that followed on is that lots of people are talking about coaching and developing. Not many people are doing it effectively. It seems to be the first meeting canceled and the last metric measured. It seems to be that companies don't understand the power of proactive coaching and development in order to up the performance of their people, which then ups the team performance and brings us what? Revenue. And that theme, no matter where we went to, seems to be ringing true when people do it differently, when they do coach, when they spend time with their folks, when they make the effort that it is an organizational cadence, it pays back in spades. What we want to move away from is this coaching illusion. The illusion that we are coaching when we are firefighting, when we're making decisions for our people, when we are auditing what's going on, or even worse, when we're having a group update and masquerading that as coaching. So let's dive into the review. Across season 2, we've examined leadership from many angles, and it became clear to me that sustainable performance doesn't come from pressure, heroics, control, that fear kind of factor that often is seen from a management perspective. It comes from structure, it comes from trust, it comes from taking time to reflect, and also it comes from discipline, a discipline of development. It comes from putting our people first so we can improve the experience that our customers have. Our guests brought a simple truth to the table. Performance improves when leaders create the environment for people to think, learn, and grow comfortably. This is the core of coaching. Yet, despite this evidence and despite all the discussions, you still get people that are saying comfortably that their leaders are coaching. You know, when we talk around it and we meet companies for the first time and they've got problems with their sales performance, we ask them about the coaching cadence. No. Our sales leaders are coaching all the time. Our sales leaders are in so many meetings, they are coaching. Every session is an opportunity to coach, and they take that. They have group meetings, mostly focused around the numbers, or they are focused on that one deal that everybody wants to talk around. The other thing is they say that they are coaching, yet actually they're making decisions for the sellers. They're directing them where to go, and they're robbing them of this learning. The worst is the meetings are irregular. There's no cadence around it. There's no structure. No one can understand when is a coaching happening, when do we expect to be there, what do we need to do when we pitch for the session. The only time it seems that it gets highlighted and put in a developmental kind of mode is when people's performance is dropped and they're on performance improvement plans. And I find that very, very sad. I want to pause here and just go back to some of the research that we shared. And you can see it on the Growth Matters website as well. You can download it and have a look. But we've seen that fewer than 25% of sales managers have ever been trained on how to coach. So when they don't know any better, they're not going to do any better. Over 80% of coaching conversations focused on either deals or the number. They don't have the variation and they don't talk about the developmental nature of being better at the profession of selling. And coaching across the board was really measured, reviewed, or improved as a discipline for a sales manager. Again, what came through for our side from a Growth Matters perspective and was echoed in our conversations is sales managers aren't failing because they want to. They simply don't know any better. They fail because they lack structure, they lack clarity, and they lack capability and a core skill for managers, and that's to coach. Another strong theme across our discussions this season was scale as a multiplier. A manager with a number of direct reports has choices, either to dive in, save deals, rescue forecasts, own customer relationships, or scale by developing capable performers who can work on multiple deals, have tight customer interactions, and move the needle to essentially hit the number. Every guest in their own way reinforced that coaching is the way to scale. I'm really grateful to all our guests because they taught us so much. Remember Flip van der Merwe? He reminded us that elite performance never improved during match day. It improved through structured training, reflection, hard work behind the scenes, and a coaching cadence you can count on. We met Rashan Bharat, who spoke powerfully about trust, humility, and psychological safety, prerequisites for any real coaching conversation. Nick Haralambas reinforced the importance of agency, action, and learning through doing exactly what non-directive coaching enables. We enhance the learning by letting people make mistakes and come to a safe place to reflect on that and get better at it. Mary Abajay highlighted self-management, emotional intelligence, and awareness as fundamental performance skills, all developed through coaching, not reporting, creating space for us to reflect, to see the areas of weakness, and to improve them together. We're in this together. We're a team as we go forward. We met Eric Sangoro, who challenged the idea of treating everyone the same, saying it just doesn't work, reinforcing that coaching must be individual, human, and strength-based, and emphasizing the fact that that creates longevity for employees because they feel seen, heard, and wanted. David Brock was unequivocal that the idea of the sales manager is not one of a super seller. He's not there or she's not there to hit the number, but to enable others to do so. Coaching was positioned as the highest leverage activity available to a leader. We met a doctor, the first doctor on the show, and that was pretty cool. He couldn't help me really with my a problem with my hammy, but he did help me with how to identify how best to hire a hunter. And he emphasized the fact that even the greatest coach can't compensate for poor role fit. Without coaching, we're not going to get the people into the right place, but without consistent coaching, even your top performers in the right role are going to drop off because the role changes, the environment changes, and they need to change with it. We need to be better constantly. Stephen Fiore demonstrated that retention and customer success are not handoffs, but coached behaviors that reinforce over time. And what did that give us? It gives us sustainable revenue. It gives us place to grow our accounts. It gives us space to introduce new offers and be relevant again and again and again with our customers. We had Stephen Umen, who reinforced the idea that there's no such thing as a cold lead. We were talking about trust, referrals, and long-term relationships that grow from intent, not from pressure. and sharpened by coaching. People need to know how to ask for warm referrals. People need to know how to grow networks. People need to know that their time on social media can actually make a difference when it comes to expanding the business footprint. And then we got to Olivia Lockwood, who was talking about behavioral change. Companies don't change, people change, not tools or dashboards, and that drives sales effectiveness. The behavior only changes consistently through coaching. And then we ended the season by stepping out of the corporate world and going into the NGO world, the non-for-profit world, and visited Zambia, where we met an organization that is changing lives by the thousands. All of this was talking around behavioral change that comes through constant one-on-one coaching and direction. Super duper stuff. It begs the question, with all of this evidence, why is coaching still the first meeting canceled in most companies? And I think what it comes down to is because it doesn't produce immediate numbers. It doesn't change the way we operate immediately. It can change some behaviors because we can get a new tool set or a model or a method to use, but it doesn't just simply flick a switch. It also requires emotional energy. And sometimes our sales leaders or our sales managers or our managers in general are already running themselves ragged. So where do they get that emotional energy to go and put in the preparation, to get into the session, to be locked in and engaged for all of their people? And because the impact only compounds quietly, coaching makes a huge difference, but it does take time. The last one, I think it's because it's not operationalized. And what I've seen and from outside customers and the difference between that and our guest is that there's no cadence for it. It's not scheduled, it's not structured, it's not trained, and it's not measured. It almost becomes optional. Well, if you're running your sales meeting and you're doing some deal reviews and you're busy and your calendar's full of meetings with customers, then it's okay not to do it. And unfortunately, optional disciplines, because they're hard, they lose urgency. Just think of yourself going to the gym. Just think of yourself on one of those New Year's resolutions. At the time of listening to this, you'll probably be in the middle of February. How many are we still sticking to that are not currently sitting in the calendar? How many are we not sticking to that we're not paying for? Because optional always loses when pressure's on. And that's the difference between okay, mediocre, and high-performing organizations. High-performing organizations perform consistently. They don't declare their coaching cultures. They don't put them on posters. They engineer the success for them. They embed that cadence. They embed the clarity. They upskill the leaders with the capability, and they make it part of their operational success. They ensure that the coaching is enabled at scale. The result of this is that managers stop firefighting. Teams stop being anxious about things. They can walk a walk. They don't have to sprint from here to there. Teams also become more autonomous. They understand the guardrails because they've got the accountability agreements in place and they coach to them. Overall pipeline improved dramatically. We're all aware of the pressure of being in sales and a sales organization, and that results in burnout quite often. There's a massive decline in burnout when we see coaching as an evidential practice. And results or forecasting in our world, it becomes predictable. All of these are positives. So there's a reflection that I'd like to leave you with on season 2. There's a challenge to you here as an audience member. If you're listening to this podcast, obviously you want to improve some aspect of your management, some aspect of your selling, some aspect of how you pitch up. You don't rock up. Take a look at your calendar. Which meetings are protected? Which meetings do you go to fight for? Which ones disappear under pressure? Which ones do we make excuses at the end of the day that we didn't have? and why we didn't have them, and we make it okay that we canceled them. Because your sales managers are either the multipliers of value or the bottlenecks to revenue. And the difference is not motivation, it's a discipline. It seems to come through in all our conversations again and again and again. It's not, do I want to coach? It's around here, coaching is a non negotiable. Do I want to coach people when they're doing well? Of course I do. I want to improve their performance so that we can get stellar. And let me leave you with this. You could be the key that unlocks the door to success for your seller or your direct report by one coaching conversation. You can be the difference between good and great. You can be the difference between their next promotion and them shooting the lights out. Why would you not want to be part of coaching? That's what I ask myself. One of the points that's come through quite strongly as well is that people haven't been equipped to coach. They don't know how to coach. And that came through very strongly. One of the points that's come through quite strongly as well is that people haven't been equipped to coach. They don't know how to coach. And, part of Growth Matters, we do the SMDP, the Sales Management Development Program. And a strong theme that goes through is how do we empower people to coach? So I thought it would be worthwhile sharing a model and a method that might be able to help you going forward. The first thing is you've got to understand that critical question-based coaching is working on moving the brain. It's working on moving how people think. It helps you to get closer to the facts. Critical questions reinforce what's important to you, and it shifts the thinking rapidly. If we want to get going, we need to do it quite quickly. We have to get the people to believe, and they need to understand that where they're going. The caveat on all of the coaching that we teach from a Growth Matters perspective is that you, as the sales manager who's doing the coaching, or the sales leader, are the GPS, you're not the driver. So don't think you have to provide all the answers. You got to ask the questions so that they can arrive at the answers. And the model that we talk around is called the ICE model. It's identify, clarify, and explore. We've got to identify the gap that we have that we want to develop. We've got to clarify the cause. How did we arrive at this gap? And then explore the action in order to mitigate it or do the learning or create the growth. Again, the theme of we've got to be the GPS, not the driver here. When identifying the gap, what's pretty important is you've got to be specific. Structured and ranking questions are better than general open-based questions. So we want to try and create a baseline. We want to identify where we are as the seller, and that we do as the leader, as the coach, by asking these questions. So, Daniel, out of 10, how would you rate the state of your pipeline right now? Very interesting. Because then we get the point of where are we? And quite often in my own, the question of the rating isn't the important question. The follow-up question is the important one. So if you rank it a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10, that's very interesting, Daniel. What would it take to move it to a 7 out of 10? What is the one move we can make to move it up 1 point? Then we clarify the cause. Please don't assume that our coachee understands why the root cause is there. Why have they got this developmental block? Why have they got this deficit? Be the guide so that they can arrive at this aha moment to see why this is important to them and where some work needs to be done. It's very important that we spend time at the clarification stage and don't just go immediately into exploring the actions. You've got to be curious here, uncover all of the rocks, spend time looking at where they are going and how they've arrived there so that they can get that big epiphany before we explore the actions. And when we're exploring the actions, there is a big word called patience. Allow them to consider, to create and commit to the actions that they will take. This way, ownership doesn't sit with you as the sales manager, it sits with the sales professional to take it away. The theme that you want to get through predictive, proactive, developmental coaching is that this is for the person. It mustn't simply fulfill the business objective, but primarily it must get the developmental growth that we want. It's about your seller being better. So, what is the method? We always have a 3-step method that we talk around, a 3-step process. And this one is pretty simple. Prepare, coach, and reflect. You've got to prepare the conversation from your side, from the sales manager side, from the coach's side. Identify the area you want to focus on in the coaching conversation. Make it linear, make it one thing, make it structured so we can go through it. Then step 2 is you coach to action. Focus on guiding your sales professional towards the actions so that they can own them. And then most important, the 3rd step is reflect to improve. Score the effectiveness of your coaching to continuously improve the performance. There's lots to unpack there. There are many mechanisms, but I want to leave you with 2. Know what to coach, know what you are going into, and know who to coach, who is receptive to coach, and where you're going to get your returns. So knowing what to coach, you can take a business lens, you can take a human lens, you can take a customer lens. So for example, on the business lens, are they meeting expectations? Do they have a healthy pipeline? Are they forecasting accurately? Are they performing well when it comes to how things are done in your environment? From a customer lens, are they having the relevant conversation? Are they in control of opportunities or opportunities in control of them? Can your seller communicate value? Can they maximize account yield? And do you have evidence of it? Can you see it? And then from a personal perspective, are they engaged? Are they motivated? Are they in it to win it? I quite often get asked, does everybody get coaching? Coaching is something which should be open to everybody, but you're going to get more returns when you're working with the willing. And you've got to prioritize where you spend your time and the returns that you're going to get through. We can explore how to build a coaching agenda. If you drop me a mail, I can give you lots of tips on how to get a structured coaching agenda together, how to make it more effective, and what is the cadence that I would recommend. So if you drop me a line, we can get that. But I hope this model and method help you to make coaching part of your everyday management style. Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Because Growth Matters. If you found this conversation valuable, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate this show 5 stars on the platform you're listening from and share it with someone who'd benefit from the conversations. Make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. See you then.